and welcome back to another episode of Vinyl Community Friday. Today is a very exciting video because even though yesterday I was talking about possibly doing an unboxing video, I thought today would be a bit different and I'm going to talk about my favourite albums to listen to on vinyl. Now, I know for the past couple of weeks I've been doing a lot of unboxing videos, so I thought I'd just spice it up a bit and talk more about vinyl itself and listening to it rather than showing it. So these are just my favourite albums to listen to on vinyl. You might have different opinions, but these are my personal favourites. So let's just start. So the first one I have here is Selling England by the Pound. This is by Genesis. The reason this one sounds so good is just Firth of Fifth sounds absolutely phenomenal on vinyl. It just sounds absolutely incredible, especially when you have good speakers. A lot of these I'm going to be saying the same things for, but the better speakers you have, the better audio quality you're going to get. And I think Firth of Fifth and also Battle of Epping Forest, they all sound so good on vinyl. And it's just when it, you know, because this is progressive rock obviously, the build-ups sound so grand and sound so much more full than if I'm listening to it on my headphones. But obviously I can't carry my record player around with me, so every time I listen to this on vinyl it's like a religious experience. But this is absolutely amazing on vinyl. Next up we have No Pussyfooting by Frippinino. I haven't talked about this album in a long time. I know I talked about it I think in one of my vinyl tags, but I haven't actually talked about it in a while. This is one of my favourite instrumental albums of all time. It's got two very accomplished musicians on it, and the reason this one sounds so good on vinyl is because I just think that electronic music on vinyl tends to sound a lot better than it does on headphones. I'm more inclined to listen to something like this or something like Tubular Bells, which I'll get to later, on vinyl because they just sound so much more full. Again, with the fullness, it sounds so much better and you can hear all the different bits that you miss out when you listen with headphones, which is one of the great things about vinyl. You can pick up on things that you may not have heard in maybe download listening. I know I've picked up on several things listening to CDs, and I'm almost coming to the conclusion that CD and vinyl are the same in terms of audio quality, but vinyl just about beats it for me. But this sounds absolutely incredible on vinyl, and if you haven't listened to this yet, this is a very good album. As I said, it's an instrumental, so if you're a fan of Robert Fripp and you're a fan of Brian Eno, put them together and they made this album and it's absolutely fantastic. It's literally just two sides of music. It's just like one long bit really, and they just sound absolutely amazing. I mean, that album I listened to a lot to help me sleep for a while because of just how calming it was. Don't take that in the way that I thought it was boring. I did not think it was boring. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But it really kind of helped me relax. So the next album I'm going to talk about is Hemispheres by Rush. Of course I'm going to put a Rush album in here. My favourite track to listen to on vinyl from this album is definitely La Villa Strangiato? I think that's how you say it. The instrumental track. Again, talking about instrumentals. But the whole album, The Trees, the track called The Trees, sounds so beautiful on vinyl. You can hear it, that acoustic sounds so clean, and it's just so fantastic to listen to on vinyl. Rush is one of those bands that I'm always listening to on vinyl more than I listen to on Spotify because I just think they sound so much better as a band on vinyl because you can hear all the little bits in their music, and the bass. Oh, the bass sounds so deep and so great on vinyl, and you really kind of feel the musicians putting in their all, especially with this album because this is my favourite Rush album. I always have the battle between this one and 2112 because I'll listen to this and I'll be like, oh yeah, Hemispheres is my favourite, and then I'll listen to 2112 and no, that's my favourite. But I think I've come to the solid conclusion that this one is my favourite, and it's probably because I listen to it so much on vinyl and the sound, it just sounds so much better and just absolutely amazing. So if you have this on CD, definitely consider getting a copy on vinyl. I know they're quite hard to find, but if you find one, definitely listen to it as soon as you get it because it will change you. It definitely changed my perspective on Rush as a band because I have their CDs, I've got Hemispheres on CD as well, and I've listened to them side by side, but it's the vinyl version of this album that really takes it for me. Now I'm talking about a lot of the same albums that I talk about all the time, but I just can't help but talk about this album again. I know a lot of you guys who are familiar with my channel and familiar with my music taste know that this is one of my all-time favourite albums. This is Red by King Crimson, and this especially Starless and Fallen Angel for me, which are my two favourites on the album, sound just so majestic on vinyl. I've been brought to tears before just by listening to Starless on vinyl. I don't get that same emotion through my Spotify account, through my MP3, or even sometimes through the CD. I always, if I can, will listen to this on vinyl because it really kind of tugs at my heartstrings a little bit because I have such a big emotional attachment to this album. And it will forever be my favourite King Crimson album, although Lark's Tongues and Aspect is slowly climbing up the food chain, so I don't think it will beat Red, but it will definitely be the second place. Anyway, this sounds absolutely phenomenal on vinyl. Again, this is very easy to find. You can get it on Discogs, very kind of cheap. You can probably get it from 15 to 20 quid. But it's so fantastic on vinyl, and I urge you to listen to it on vinyl. It will change your perspective on the album. It changed my perspective. I didn't really like Starless that much before I listened to this on vinyl. When I sat down and listened to the whole thing, I was blown away, and it became my favourite track on the album instantly because of just the difference in audio quality. I listened to it on, you know, headphones. You could have the most amazing pair of headphones for your phone or whatever you're listening to your music on the go. I usually use my MP3 player or Spotify, but I find that a lot of my favourite tracks are because I've been listening to them on vinyl, and I always pick up on things I didn't notice before, and it just hits a bit different to a download, especially with this album and, you know, the whole darkness and how kind of the bass just kind of works on this album. It's very bellowing. I can't think of a good word for it. It's very deep and it's very dark. So listening to it on vinyl will definitely change your perspective of it, and the bass sounds amazing on this album. We have an amp downstairs that you can control the amount of treble and bass, and usually when I'm listening to this album I'll amp up the bass just a little bit more so I can get that kind of that experience of listening to Red. But yeah, I could go on about how much I love this album for ages. I did a review of it as well, but this is definitely my favourite King Crimson album and one to definitely listen to on vinyl. Right, going back to instrumentals again, we have Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells. This is a very fancy copy that we got. This is the, I think, a deluxe edition, but this, oh my god, Tubular Bells is another one that I grew to love because of the vinyl version. Just the intro on this, because I don't use this turntable as much as I use the one downstairs. I'll use this one if I can't access the one downstairs, but because these speakers are not as good as the ones downstairs, so I'll always listen to, when I can, listen to the one downstairs. And I heard this for the first time on vinyl in our downstairs speakers, and it just blew me away. I instantly really fell in love with this album because the first time I heard it I was on a train home from London, and I'd only heard part one of Tubular Bells, and I just bought it, I think, almost instantly because I fell in love with it and I wanted to know how different it would sound. And I think the piano, especially the piano mixing on this album, it just sounds so much cleaner and so much more eerie in a way. Because if you're in a room with just the speakers and the vinyl and you've got the piano intro coming in, you're just sitting there and you're just immediately immersed in the music, and that's what I found with this album and listening to it on vinyl. So definitely get yourself a copy of Tubular Bells. I mean, I don't really need to say that because I think all of you out there probably have a copy of Tubular Bells, but this is one to listen to on vinyl, and I might do that because I haven't done that in a while. I haven't listened to it in a long time. Next up, oh, upside down, we have Depression Cherry by Beach House. Now this is in the opposite direction of progressive rock completely. But this is such a beautiful album and just a very atmospheric one to listen to on vinyl. I know I usually listen to this with headphones, just on my phone, but every time I can, as with all the other ones, I will try and listen to it on vinyl because you get a completely different experience listening to this on vinyl. It just sounds so beautiful. This is like dream pop kind of stuff, so it's very atmospheric and very pretty sounding, and that's probably why I like it so much. You know, I'm not just a prog fan, I listen to a lot of different genres, and this album is one of my favourite non-prog albums of all time. It's so beautiful. I've got a lot of memories attached to this one, and it just makes for a very great album. It's so beautifully sounding on vinyl as well, the way it plays. As I said, it's very atmospheric, and just you get that when you listen to it on vinyl. With good speakers, this is one to check out. this actually came with a CD version, so that was quite useful as well. So definitely give Beach House a listen if you haven't already. I'm sure that if you're a fan of like 80s kind of synth music, you'll probably like it as well. Alright, another lesser prog one, but almost in the same vein. This is Kid A by Radiohead. As I've mentioned before, I basically grew up on Radiohead. I grew up on the Bends and OK Computer, so I'm very much familiar with those. But I first listened to this album on vinyl. I got it, I impulsively bought it because I knew that a lot of people rated it very highly. So I just decided to, you know, say, why not, and buy it. And just from the opening track, I was hooked via the vinyl version, and it just sounds so full, so big, and just the keyboards sound great on the speakers downstairs as well. But I think on this album, in terms of the vinyl version, my favourite is definitely Motion Picture Soundtrack. I had to look just to remember the name. Listening to that on vinyl is just an experience and a half. It's so worth checking out if you haven't listened to this already on vinyl. It will change you. Like, it really changed my perspective again on Radiohead and music, and gave me the solid conclusion that vinyl is the best way to listen to music. But yeah, this is a fantastic record to listen to on vinyl. Also, OK Computer is great, but this one has so many little bits you can pick up on. All the little, you know, weird moments on this album that don't really have a chance to be heard on like CD versions or download versions, particularly download version. But you pick up on so much on this album, and it's probably up there with my favourite Radiohead albums. So this is Kid A by Radiohead, and one you've probably already heard, but why not? I'm talking about it again. So I've talked about this album before on my channel. I've also talked about the artist a little bit, but this is Wazeblood, and this is the album Titanic Rising. This isn't quite underground, but it's not as well known. But this is such a beautiful album. Again, on the electronic-y kind of pop side, it's very similar to Beach House, but the vocals are very different. But this is a great one to listen to on vinyl because of the atmosphere. Again, I could talk about the atmosphere of this album for days, but this is absolutely amazing to listen to on vinyl, and one that I urge you all to listen to, because I first heard this album on a radio. I heard the song Movies, which I think is the single from this album, and I fell in love with it, and I listened to the album on Spotify and I loved it, so we just decided to get it. And it just sounds so different on vinyl, but different in the best possible way. And, you know, as I said, better speakers means better audio quality and just a more amazing time to listen to vinyl. So definitely check out this album if you haven't already. I think some of my viewers may know it, but if you haven't, then definitely check it out. Next and last, for the non-progressive rock stuff, we have Tame Impala, Currents. Again, a more recent release. By recent, I mean in the last 10 years or so. This is a fantastic album, and one that I've heard a lot, and I've heard this album so many times. Thanks, Johan. But it is a fantastic album, and one that's very good to listen to on vinyl because of, again, the atmosphere, all the little bits you pick up on, just everything sounds so... The production on this album, especially the mix for the vinyl version, sounds so fantastic, and just a great album. It's just a great album to listen to on vinyl. It's one to just kind of wind down and listen to. You probably are all familiar with this album. It's quite a popular one in the last couple of years or so. So I definitely recommend this, and yeah, great vinyl remix. So on to the progressive rock stuff. So I thought I had 3 left, but I have 4. So let's start with Pink Floyd's Meddle. I completely forgot to put a Pink Floyd album in here, and I kind of just remembered to do it. But this is Meddle by Pink Floyd, probably one of my favourite of the Pink Floyd stuff. The reason that I love this one on vinyl so much is just for, number one, echoes, but also, you know, One of These Days sounds fantastic on vinyl. Just the bass sounds amazing through the speakers, and it like rumbles on the ground, and you can kind of feel it, and it's just so great, and to have that connection with the music. And obviously I think one of the first times I ever heard echoes was on vinyl, so listening to that was great because I wasn't really familiar with long songs up until this point. So listening to this on vinyl changed my perspective on longer music, really, because time flies when you listen to good music, and especially when it's on vinyl, because it's just great to have it. and listen to it on vinyl. So yeah, this is Medal, and this is just a fantastic album to listen to. Again, just to wind down, or just because it's a great album. Alright, on to the final 3 albums. We haven't talked about Yes yet, so we'll do that now. Close to the Edge by Yes. Now, I could have picked any other Yes albums, because I think they all sound great on vinyl, but this is my favourite, and this is the Steven Wilson remix. So, I actually prefer this version of Close to the Edge than the actual original mix, because the middle section of the long track just sounds so amazing, and you just immerse yourself in this beautifulness of harmonizing and great keyboard work, great vocal work, just everything in this album is so great to listen to on vinyl. And if you haven't listened to it on vinyl yet, I urge you to, although again, you've probably all heard it by now. This is obviously an alternate cover. I have got the original one right here. But I prefer this one, and I think Steven Wilson's done a great job on remixing these vinyl versions, and I was considering doing a video about the Steven Wilson vinyl box set for the Yes albums. So yeah, this is Close to the Edge by Yes, and the Steven Wilson remix sounds very, very good. It sounds phenomenal. It's just amazing. Next, we have the first Emerson, Lake and Palmer release. The reason why I picked this one over something like Trilogy or Tarkus is just for the 3 Fates. That track sounds so godlike on vinyl. It sounds so amazing, and you just sit there and you just completely in adoration of the keyboard playing, the mastery behind it, the whole instrumentation of the album. I think Take a Pebble and The Barbarian also sound fantastic on vinyl, but I think the 3 Fates is my favourite thing to listen to on vinyl from this album. I've listened to Tarkus so many times on vinyl, and I would put it in this list, but I thought that I'd talk about this one for a change. But this is such a fantastic album. If you haven't heard it, what are you doing? Lastly, I'm going to finally say this, and I hope that people watch to the end, because I'm not going to repeat myself in the comments again. I absolutely adore Marillion. I think I haven't made that very clear, but a lot of people seem to not watch my videos very thoroughly, because I do talk about Marillion quite a lot, and people are still asking me if I like Marillion or not, or I should talk about Marillion more in my videos. So to those people, you're welcome. I'm going to talk about Script for a Jester's Tear today, because this is my favourite thing to listen to on vinyl. This is my favourite of the Marillion releases to listen to on vinyl. Just everything about it, really. I think it sounds fantastic on vinyl, and yeah, I think I prefer listening to it on vinyl than on download, because I didn't really click with it as much on download as I did with the vinyl version. So listening to it like this changed my opinion on the album quite drastically, and it's become one of my favourite prog albums ever. Especially, you know, I think Chelsea Monday is my favourite on this album, and it just sounds so great on vinyl, just from the intro and the build-up. The guitar work sounds so good. It's very atmospheric, very Genesis-like. A lot of people think that they are just a rip-off Genesis, but I think that they're a fantastic group, and, you know, one of the best prog acts to come out of the 80s. But yeah, Marillion, Script for a Jester's Tear, absolutely fantastic, and I hope that answers everyone's questions. I hope they watched those people watched to the end of this video. That is the end of today's video, and my question to you guys: what are your favourite albums to listen to on vinyl? Let me know in the comments. You know, I'll probably end up seeing comments and think, oh, I should have put that one in. But these are my personal favourites. And yeah, see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Saturdays with Dab. Bye.